They talk about the boom, but do they mention the bust? The headlines scream luxury, but the numbers don't lie. It's time to look the market straight in the eye.
Welcome to the Miami Condo Exchange, where we break down the price, the scope, and the range.
With Peter Zalewski, the authority here, making the complex simple, making the murky clear. From the buy-side pressure to the sell-side heat, we're tracking every move on the concrete street. We got the data, the stats, the metrics you need. Beyond the flash and the glamour, we're planting the seed of truth. We analyze the trends, we map out the spread. Is it vintage charm or a money pit trap? We're looking at the analytics, closing the gap. Past performance, present shock, future prediction. Separating hard reality from the friction of fiction. No sugarcoating, no fluff, no disguise. Just the raw condo numbers right before your eyes. South Florida is shifting, the tides start to turn. If you don't know the math, you're gonna get burned. Yeah, this is the Miami Condo Exchange.
Welcome to the Miami Condo Exchange, where we break down the price, the scope, and the range.
With Peter Zalewski, keeping it real, digging deep in the dirt of every single deal. From the buy-side pressure to the sell-side heat, the only podcast you need on the Miami street. Hey.
Real numbers, real talk.
The hyperbole stops here. This is the Miami Condo.
Condo Exchange, y'all.
Happy Tuesday, Miami. This is Miami Condo Exchange. It is a podcast that's on live on Tuesdays. What we do is we talk about condo trends, we talk about analytics, and we also talk about what's going on with the metrics out there in the South Florida condo market. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I am an expert witness. I'm also the founder of Miami Condo Investing Club. Once a week, we're going to be talking data. We're going to be talking trends. We're going to be telling you about all of the statistical nuances of what's going on in the South Florida condo market. Normally, we do this podcast at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays. However, today is meetup day for the Miami Condo Investing Club once a month, always on the third Tuesday of the month. We get together and we have some drinks, we talk shop, and everybody just has an opportunity to sort of interact and share word stories about what's going on in the trenches in the Tri-County South Florida market of Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. As part of our initiative and our effort to sort of expand the club. And remember, the club is all about trying to bring people who are condo-minded, whether they are DIY buyers, which is do-it-yourself, whether they're realtors, whether they are lenders, maybe even the regulators, they could even be gadflies. Anybody and everybody who's related to the condo market or interested in the condo market, that's effectively who our target market is. And because of our target market, what we're doing this month for our meetups, again, once a month, third Tuesday of the month, we goes from typically from 6 to 8 o'clock, but normally it goes a little bit longer because nobody wants to leave. Because of that, we're actually recording this podcast a little bit earlier than normal. We're recording it at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, besides or differently than what we normally do, which is 4 o'clock. Monday through Friday, I do a live podcast at 4 o'clock. But because this week's meetup is up in Palm Beach County, we're going to Boca Raton. The first time we're going to Boca Raton. Because of that, I decided to record it a little bit earlier. I'm going to record it. I'm going to publish it. And then we are going to get on the road, or I'm going to get on the road, and I'm going to head up to Boca Raton or so. So because of that, we're recording a little bit earlier. Next month in January, we're going to be doing it in Miami-Dade County. We're doing it in Coral Gables. And as a result of that, I'll be able to broadcast or at least record it probably at 4 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier. But generally speaking, this is an exception. And this will happen probably once every 5 months or so, we have a rotation where we bounce around from different towns or different cities or different neighborhoods. So everybody gets to sort of share in the pain in terms of driving. So what are we talking about today in the Miami Condo Exchange? And by the way, the Miami Condo Exchange, what it's all about, I want you to get a visual. Think about this concept. When I look at the condo market, it reminds me in South Florida, it reminds me of effectively back in the 1980s, 1990s, before people bought and sold stock with their telephone using Robinhood app or Charles Schwab or anything like that. Back in the day, there were trading pits. There were trading pits set up around the United States, primarily in New York, as well as Chicago. Chicago did commodities. New York was doing the stocks, generally speaking. And what would happen is when you were buying a stock, you would call your broker. Your broker would then call somebody down on the floor. Somebody on the floor would write up an order. They would give it to what was called a runner. Runner would take that order. They'd run it over to the pit where you had these traders who were, they were making a decision about what was going on, what the pricing was, all that type of stuff. So when I look at the South Florida condo market, when I see Interstate 95, which is pretty much hugging the coast, so you're going to have the waterfront properties on the bay or the intercoastal, and then you're ultimately going to have the barrier islands where the land, some of it man-made, it actually fronts the Atlantic Ocean. So when I see Eastern Interstate 95, I'm thinking condo trading pit. I am thinking, why? Because I think condos are commodities. I think they trade. Now, they might be marketed one way, but ultimately, once they get resold, they're ultimately going to trade like any other kind of commodity, whether it be orange juice, whether it be coffee, pork bellies, oil, salty snacks, whatever the case may be. It's all going to trade based on pricing, and that's the way I'm looking at the market. And that's what the purpose of this podcast is: kind of look at the trends, strip away all the emotional. Well, environmentally you can't strip away, but strip away the emotional part, strip away all the upgrades that have been made. Well, I like I over improved my countertop. This that. It doesn't really matter. Condos are commodities. They all virtually look about the same, especially high rises. First 7 stories are going to basically be your parking garage. On the outside, they will put townhouses, they'll put studios, they'll put office space, retail, they'll have the concierge. When you get to the 8th floor, that's where your common areas are going to be, your amenities, your gym, your pool, and then above that will be basically the residential tower. So when we're looking at these things, you can figure out pricing based on per floor, which view it is. It's all basically numbers. Opposed to when you get into a single-family house, that's actually more of a work of art. Single-family house, depending on the lot size, the shape, the trees. Is it 1-story, 2-story? Does it puddle in front? How far is it from a busy street? Is there a cul-de-sac? All those other factors make, in my opinion, single-family houses works of art. Condos, you can figure it all out. But because we're in South Florida, you would be able to trade these things electronically. But because we're in South Florida, you basically have to show up and make sure the building actually exists, because we have a little bit of a reputation for not necessarily being on the up and up on everything, i.e. we're the capital of healthcare fraud and other kinds of frauds. So that being said, this podcast is dedicated to talking about condos as commodities and giving you some trends as to what's going on in the marketplace. As mentioned, we're doing our monthly meetup this week, so this is going to be cut a little bit short. Normally I go about an hour. This one, it might go about 15 to 20 minutes or so. Once it's done, I'm going to edit it, and then I'm going to publish it. Hopefully it'll be up by 4 o'clock, so it meets our 4 o'clock live broadcast schedule that we normally do. Let me go ahead and share share my screen as we can kind of get through this. And what are we going to be talking about today? We're talking about the unemployment number. The Bureau of Labor Statistics finally released the unemployment number. And it wasn't a good one. So we're going to talk about that briefly. We're then going to get into what's going on with the Miami Condo Association Financial Cliff Index. This is an index we created on January the 1st to kind of track what was going on real time in the marketplace. Typically, when people look at condo statistics, transaction statistics, they can be 30, 60, 90, 120 days old. So it's looking in the past, kind of like unemployment number is looking in the past. Where we with our index, our Condo Cliff Index, we're basically giving you real time that's updated every Tuesday, hence doing the podcast on Tuesday and calling it the Miami Condo Exchange. Why? Because we're giving you that type of data to look at it, not necessarily as a home, but more so as a commodity. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we're going to get through this really quickly. I'm sharing right now. Let's see if I can find the right one. We're going to pull up a chart that's actually coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And where are you, Mr. Bureau of Labor Statistics? I just had you there. There we go. All right. I'm pulling it up. So you guys are now seeing it right now. And what you're looking at is basically the unemployment rate for the last 20 years in the United States. And let me work my little screen so you can see me. There we go. All right. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the unemployment rate for the last 20 years in the United States. And you can see back in right when the pandemic was hitting, we were coming in somewhere. This thing should have clicked. We came in at 13.2% in May of 2020. We were as high as 14.8% in April of 2020. Remember, March of 2020 is ultimately